Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah, as Paul mentioned, and I am the executive director and co-founder of True School. And before I get started, I just wanted to bring up one of my amazing team members who has been with me from day one, just to kind of get things awake and started, and give you a little bit of taste of what we do. So I'm going to ask Fidel Verdine, we call him Viva Fidel, to come up real quick
Hello.
and
Check,
get
check.
the crowd engaged
Check.
a little bit.
All right, how y'all doing? All right, check. All right, now we just want to have a little bit of time to, short and sweet to just wake everybody up. All the ugly people, be quiet. All right, check it out. This is something we do in hip hop, a lot of call and response, and so we're just gonna have some little fun. Y'all want to make a song with me right fast? All right, this side on the on my left, I just want y'all to just follow me right quick, okay? Just go. Back two, in the back. Keep that going. In the middle, say, easy. 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 On this side, say, huh? In the back, huh? Y'all in the back, y'all ready? Y'all say, yeah. Can't hear you, let me hear you say, yeah. What's going on? Creative Milwaukee, I'm Viva Fidel, and this is Sarah D, and we ready to rock, and we ready to rule. Somebody say, True School.
True School.
True School. All right, that's it. Thank y'all much.
So we call that manual beat production. So again, good morning. I'm glad that you all took some time out of this morning to come and hear me talk a little bit about the theme today, broken. I found it a very interesting and almost challenging topic, but I wanted to start a little bit on my personal story. 20 minutes for me is a very short time. I'm used to talking. So I do have some notes. I'm going to try to avoid looking at them, but I want to make sure that you guys kind of understand the history behind True School and why it was started and why we're here in Milwaukee. So that kind of begins with my story growing up. I was raised in Mequon, some of you may be familiar with. It's a suburb out of Milwaukee, predominantly white. And growing up in there, it was kind of like growing up in a little bubble. And I was first introduced to hip hop culture by a friend of mine, Mara, in 7th or 8th grade. And it really got me thinking about the idea that in my high school, in our textbooks, there was about a page and a half around slavery and civil rights, maybe a paragraph or two around indigenous people and their plight and things that happened in history. And there was a real lack of diversity in our people's history. And so for me, hip hop really introduced the idea of other cultures, other people's history, other backgrounds. And it got me thinking and a little bit angry about the idea that I was being taught a very small bubble of knowledge. And for me, it also really got me thinking about, well, what else is out in this world? So I had to kind of really find that education and find that information myself. I remember going to the public library and finding the Eyes on the Prize series and really knowing and understanding our history of America and better grasping kind of what young people and what adults deal with in society and why. And so hip hop was not only to me enticing because of the beats and rhymes, but the words really spoke to me as well. And understanding that music can be a source of education really kind of clicked for me in high school. And so I kind of go back to Chuck D from Public Enemy's quote where he says that hip hop was the CNN of the black community. And it speaks on the idea that music can really tell somebody's story and can teach us things that we may not get from school, from parents, from friends, from peers, from our own little bubbles that we may live in. So hip hop to me really introduced this idea of a global perspective and knowing that besides my block, there was so much more out there in this world. So it got me thinking about being a cultural anthropologist, and that was something that I was really excited about doing and pursuing. And I found myself in my senior year of high school meeting with my counselor the beginning of the year, really beginning to think about that pathway to college, and then I found myself pregnant. So at 17 years old, my life took a very quick turn, and I had to kind of figure things out very quickly. So after high school, I was able to get through high school and graduate on time, and I didn't really want to fall into the statistics of being a teenage mom. So I really looked for resources and got a job and started working in the IT field. And a friend of mine worked at a community center on the south side. And I knew that there was this history of service in my family. At a young age, my brother was diagnosed with Tourette's syndrome and dealt with some mental health issues. And I remember being a young person, sitting back and watching my mom in support groups and seeing news clippings of her. My father was in public service in Mequon. He worked for the city, later became an entrepreneur. So when I started getting into IT field, for me, it was the idea that as a single mom, I needed to kind of have a side hustle. And for me, computers was that. And so I didn't have technology training. I didn't go to school for it, but I kind of learned on my own and created this side business for myself to help support my family. So with that, again, I started volunteering at a community center, the Milwaukee Christian Center on the south side, which is still there. And this was in the 90s. And took my daughter there at night. A friend of mine worked the teen nights, was hanging out, and realized they had a computer lab that was no longer really working or functioning. So I volunteered and started teaching classes and developing curriculum. But this was also like the hot spot for hip hop in Milwaukee. This is where the DJs were coming, the breakdancers were practicing. And knowing that I grew up in this culture, that for me, seeing young people create new forms of art, music, and dance that has become this multi-billion-dollar industry, the idea of young people creating something out of nothing, really started to click to me. So in the classroom, I started to bring hip-hop in there. So teaching young people, how do you browse the internet by finding your favorite music artist? What is file uploads and downloads and speed times and things like that? And that's back in the day when we had Napster and you had to dial up to get, we didn't have really, there was no Facebook, it was Mi Gente and Black Planet, a very different world we lived in. But I really began to see how young people were grasping to the idea of using something that they connected to, hip hop culture, music, art, dance. And in the classroom, after, of course, sitting in a classroom all day, most young people don't want to go into another one after school, but it was a way for them to be engaged in a fun way. It was a way for them to have something that connected to their likes and the things that they were into. And so I consider that kind of my turning point, is when I really began to realize like the purpose of me being here and what I wanted to do in life. And the idea of meeting young people where they're at. So I was used to fixing broken computers. I was used to finding solutions through technology. And as I got into the field of youth work, it was my first experience. I wasn't involved in this any before. I was in the IT field, so I was very technical and logical, and everything, made sense on a technical term. But when I started working with youth and really beginning to see how multifaceted young people are, and to remember myself as a young person, and to think that a lot of times in these youth organizations that we work with, they think that these young people are broken. They need to be fixed. There's something wrong with them. And we label them and we say to them, there's something wrong with you. You need to act this way. You need to do this. You need to do this. When in actuality, young people are the most connected to that creative spirit. They're most connected to the ability to create solutions out of their creativity. And sometimes I think about us as adults being the broken ones, and that we sometimes disconnect from that. And we disconnect from the idea that our young people are problem solvers. Our young people are creative, are talented, and a lot of times we stifle that by telling them don't do this, don't do that, when they're the ones we should be looking to for solutions. So it began to change my mind and really the way that I wanted to work with young people, and that this would be a new path for me. So around 2003, 2004, True School kind of came about. We started throwing open mics. Fidel was right there with me. As he was doing his Summer of Peace initiative in Milwaukee, we tied those together. We started doing block parties. We started having graffiti battles, breakdance battles, and really engaging young people in the things that they like to do anyways, but got them in a safe place, got them in a place where they were able to engage with other peers, and then really was able to provide not only skills, but over the years, we've developed the programming to also really include and attach the socio-emotional piece of developing young people. And so today, we have multiple programs and classes that we offer. It started a lot with graffiti, and we got into DJing, music production, visual arts, band and performance. So teaching the skills and using the urban arts kind of as the hook to get young people in the door, and the carrot, so to speak, to teach them about social justice, social emotional health, gender-specific issues, giving them a safe place to talk, but also then being able to process that information through the arts. So after a workshop, you get to go into the studio and talk about and create a song. You get to go into visual arts class and you get to paint something and process all the emotions and put it somewhere besides inside yourself. Really thinking about the idea of connecting industry professionals. So we're bringing in artists like Master Ace and KRS-One and Chuck D and having them talk to our young people about the realities of the industry, but also how do you become a change maker? How do you become a creative solution provider in your community by using these arts? So every time somebody would leave, a big name like that, they'd say to us, God, that just like renewed my spirit. It gave me energy that I needed. And it's all, and I tell them, you know, working here is like working with the fountain of youth. You walk in, you get this energy, and you feel these young people that aren't broken. They don't need fixing, but they need opportunities. And so what's been important for True School is to really think about developing this pipeline of saying, just like when we were young, and I've known Fidel since high school, and he had a rap group called Boot Camp Click. I used to see signs all over the city, and I knew about them, and we both worked in the mall. He was downstairs, I was upstairs. But thinking about back then, how we created this sense of community, and we were able to work with each other and really decide for ourselves how we were going to spend our time and how we were going to create our futures. And so it's interesting to see that after 20, 30 years that we're now all kind of involved in community and youth work. And I think that speaks volumes to the generation we grew up in and the culture of hip hop that raised us. So being able to use that to work with young people and provide them with the opportunities that they deserve, that they are usually not afforded, and really thinking about the idea that, you know, our city is broken. Our education system is broken. Our juvenile justice system is broken. Family structure is broken. But our young people are not. And so the idea that, you know, and I know I'm kind of speaking to the choir. How many people are here and kind of in the creative or entertainment industries? Awesome. So you know as adults, you are connected to that spirit, right? You guys are able to go into work every day and be creative and use the things that you know have given you life and give you that renewed energy. So for our young people, it's been really important for us to acknowledge their resilience, especially in a city like Milwaukee, where 40% of our young people are living in poverty, where 50% of African American males are unemployed or incarcerated, where we're considered one of the worst places for young black children to be raised. We also know on the flip side of that, that despite all that, we have some of the most talented and resilient young people that walk through our doors every day. And for us, it's important that as adults, we recognize that they don't need fixing, they're not broken, but they need opportunity. They need mentors. They need to be able to understand what social impact in the workforce means. They need to be developed as social entrepreneurs. In a city where we have a very low, small amount of jobs and employment opportunities, we know that we can create those. And I always talk, especially to our young women, when the opportunity isn't there, we bum rush the stage and we create that opportunity. And so it's important that for True School, we look at partnering with the creative industry, partnering with the entertainment industry, and saying to them, look at the talent we have in Milwaukee. We want to keep them rooted here. We want to develop and retain the talent that we have, and we do that through partnerships. So for True School, our next phase is now, after 14 to 18, developing that pipeline, is now creating what's the next step. So as they age out, they're becoming interns, they're becoming teaching artists. We are developing an 18+ program around social innovation to teach them how to be entrepreneurs. How do you create a business canvas? What's your market value? What are your financials look like? How do you maintain those as a professional artist? And again, it's really developing this partnership in the city to look at our young people as problem solvers. And my journey has taught me that, having to be an entrepreneur at a young age just to kind of take care of my family, looking at the service of my parents, looking at the other young people that I grew up with and seeing that the culture we were in, the culture that we were created by, has really created a sense of community for us now as adults. And so we all partner and we work together. But what's important for us now is next step is to really look at how do we keep these young people here? How do we acknowledge their resilience and the talent that we have? And so I would ask you as adults to really think about the idea that You know, again, we're a lot of creatives in the room, and you understand and see that connection and that spirit to the creative solution. But to also see the young people in Milwaukee as that as well, and to look at them for your next employers, your next interns, your next partners, and your next contractors, and to know and say that, you know, we do have a lot of great young people here. They're not broken. They don't need fixing, but they do need opportunity. So thank you again for coming out today. I think my timeline, awesome. It's very hard for me to speak in 20 minutes, but I think I got it in there. So I want to thank you guys for coming out and listening to my story and my journey and True School's journey as well, and know that there are a lot of amazing organizations in Milwaukee that work with young people, and to reach out to them. If it's not True School, there's so many more, and to really look at the idea of supporting these young people who are talented and creative and who are ready to enter our workforce and ready to make some change in Milwaukee. So thank you guys. Woo.